We finally made it to the end of our beloved Stranger Things series. And there are all sorts of takes on the finale and on season 5. And I am going to talk about the way in which the Duffer Brothers remind us to never underestimate children. Their power, their resilience, their malleability, which can be used against them, but only to a point. The Duffer Brothers always open the season with the cold open of the first episode is basically the mystery, the big story that we'll be teasing out throughout the whole season. And for season 5, they open it with Will, little Will, baby boy Will, lost in the upside down world and just trying to survive. And eventually he can't. He climbs up a tree and the Demogorgons take him and they stick that thing in his mouth, and you get a sense that this poor little boy is just done for. But we know he's not, because we have seen the first 4 seasons and now we're in season 5, and it gives us a sense of, oh my God, are they just going to hurt Will again? Or are we going to learn about how that boy became more powerful and more resilient as a result of that event? And as it turns out, that cold open scene is not just about Will, though it is. It's about all these other children that Vecna wants to take and what his plans are for them, and that his own childhood experience gives him the erroneous notion that children can be controlled and manipulated into doing exactly what you want. And of course, if you're Vecna, what you want is very nefarious. And season 5 is a love letter to the power of children, to the hope they bring, and also to how much they are, in fact, listening to the adults around them and taking their advice and giving their own advice and transformational ideas in return to those who helped raise them. In Stranger Things season 5, the Duffer Brothers closed the cycle that they opened on episode 1 of season 1, when little Will, played by Noah Schnapp, gets taken, disappears. And now he is, at the beginning, about a 16-year-old character. And one of the things that must be addressed for him is his relationship with his main caretaker, his beloved mother, Joyce, who is played by Winona Ryder. And that relationship has been at the soul of the whole story. This woman, she loses her boy, she gets him back, but she doesn't quite get him back because he's still tied to the upside down world, and she is forever worried about him. But she also carries with her this guilt about the fact that he was taken in the first place. And there's a beautiful scene where she's like, look, I wasn't even there when you got taken. I was out. I was working, which she was working double shift. That's fine. But then she's like, and I came home and I drank cheap wine and I watched Cheers reruns and I didn't check on you until the next morning. You had been gone for 8 hours. And she's like, what kind of a mother does that? And what we see is, of course, Will, who is about as good as a human as there is, he forgives her. He doesn't even hold that against her, but she hasn't forgiven herself for that. And it's almost like her journey throughout the whole show is to become a mother, not just to Will, the mother she should have been, but to all of the young characters in the show. She's just desperately trying to make up for that moment. But as she does, she's overprotective, and he must explain to her that he is now 16. He is somebody who, by that very experience, as it turns out, becomes so much more powerful than we could have even imagined. And yes, that power is tinged with darkness, and it is tied to his original kidnapping. But he's able to communicate to her exactly why he needs to be allowed to use that power, to grow into it. And she does. And as he actually learns to use that power, he ends up having a conversation with Vecna, where Vecna was like, you pathetic little kid, you were so easy to break and to control. This is why I'm taking all these children, because you showed me just how easy it is to break a child. And that, of course, is Vecna's greatest weakness, because he underestimates not only Will, who turns out to be basically as powerful as Vecna, because he might not have the same amount of Vecna juice power, but he is pure of heart, and he's able to all these other things that blind Vecna to other people, even though he's in their minds, and that make him just want more and more power. Will does not have them. Will has one goal, and it is to protect everybody he loves, and it makes Vecna vulnerable to him in ways that he wouldn't be if he had known who he was facing, if he hadn't underestimated this child and all the other children around him. In order for Will to be able to face Vecna in season 5, he must first face the darkness inside him. And he doesn't have darkness in terms of I evil or anything like that. As we all know, he's very pure of heart. But he has a secret, and those secrets are always dangerous in storytelling and in real life. The secrets that we're holding onto tend to make us make terrible decisions. And in his case, it just mostly just holds him back. So we've known since season 1 that Will is gay, and we've also known that he is in love with Mike, who is his best friend, who is in love with Elle. And because Vecna basically enters your mind and he controls you by sort of digging into all your fears and terrors and your shame, Will can't go to face Vecna unless he has sorted out his life and come out. And so enter Maya Hawke's Robin, who had to have some truth serum in season 3 in order to come out, but she did, and it worked out, and now she has a fabulous girlfriend, and Robin is able to see what Will is going through, and she's able to help him articulate to himself why, one, there's nothing whatsoever wrong with it, and why he can use the child in him, his childhood memories, to find that moment in him that makes him so strong and powerful. And this helps him have this scene that I know everybody hated, and fine, it wasn't my favorite scene either, where he comes out, and I understand that it was a very clumsy coming out scene, but it was a scene that was needed in order for them to all go together and face Vecna. Why? Because Vecna was going to be inside Will's head, but also because it brings them all together. He finally, that little bit of secrets that he was keeping, he's not keeping them anymore. He's completely open with all these people, and of course they all supported him. Maybe the writing was a little clumsy, but the heart of it is exactly attuned to the very optimistic and loving world, despite the horrors that the Duffer Brothers create. One of the most difficult storylines to watch, at least at the beginning, in season 5 of Stranger Things is the one between Dustin, Gaten Matarazzo, and Steve, Joe Keery. They've been the most delightful, funniest, unstoppable duo since season 3, when they finally ended up coming together and fighting the Russians. We have Steve as the goofy, funny jock, and we have Dustin as the brainy genius. And in both of the teenage group and the children's group, they're the ones who bring the humorous touch. So you put them together and my God, is it fun. However, this time Dustin is reeling from the death of Eddie Munson, and Eddie died to save Dustin. And this is something that he knows, and on top of everything else, Dustin keeps on seeing him be besmirched and thought of as like a monster, and he kind of takes that grief out on Steve. Before Eddie died, he realized that he and Steve were not so different and that they had this wonderful moment, but Dustin didn't witness it, and in his anger, he is completely self-destructive, and it's a very difficult rift to watch. And it all falls apart in Hawking's lab, which starts to melt, and they're so mad at each other, they split up. And then there's a moment during which Steve, because he's the jock, is gonna like put some like ladder on the stairs, and Dustin is like, please do not. And it turns out, of course, Dustin is right, because everything melts, and then they hug, and he finally is able to articulate, Dustin is, just how painful it would be for him to lose Steve, who is perhaps the person that he was able to take out his anger on the most, because is the person that would be there for him if he did, right? Sometimes with kids, they are amazing at everybody else's house, but then at your house, they're terrible. And you're like, why? And it's like, because they know that that is the bond that will never break. If they need to show their worst side, they're going to show it to the people who will be there no matter what. And that would be Steve. The motor that powers season 5 of Stranger Things is the fact that Vecna wants to take 12 children and use them in order to build a new world that he thinks will be a better world, but you know, it's Vecna, so not so much. And the first person that he takes is Holly Wheeler, played by Nell Fisher, and that would be Mike and Nancy's little sister. And the taking, of course, is very poltergeisty and horrible and terrifying, and it involves mother and bathtub, just like in Poltergeist. But it also means that she ends up in a world that looks like Vecna's mind. It actually looks like this world. It's very pretty and adorable, but it is also the world where Max, Sadie Sink, has been living for, I don't know, almost 2 years while she is in her coma. And these two young girls must come together in order to figure out how to defeat Vecna and go back to the real world. What we have is that Max has spent all this time walking through his memories and learning all sorts of things about his traumas and his minds. And she found a cave where he will not go because it terrifies him. So that's this very safe space for her. And she brings Holly into that cave, and together they hatch a plan. Max has all this knowledge, and she's Max, right? She's cool and fabulous, and she shows a very maternal side that we didn't necessarily think was there. But she's also sort of running out of hope, right? She's like, well, I'm just going to live in this little cave, and this is what I'm going to do because I don't know how to get back in. Whereas Holly, who is at first doesn't believe her, Holly is she's like dressed like Alice in Wonderland. She's this spunky, innocent kid, eventually is able to say, no, look, we can get out of here. She doesn't know how, right? Because they can't figure out how the hell do you get out of this place. But she knows that being unstoppable and being curious, that curiosity that kids have, and being creative, which is something that Max had, but by God, by now she's lost it, is the way out. And as happens in these stories, when you get to the place where all of these qualities brought you together, you're also faced with some insane and very difficult darkness, which means that both of these little girls, Max is not really a little girl by then, right? She's 16, but she's still a child, must be rewarded for their great bravery by witnessing some horrific trauma that our villain Vecna experienced as a child as well, which is key to the whole Stranger Things universe. And then they must be able to move past it. His trauma, their trauma. And it's an amazing duo of tired, jaded teenager and hopeful, too innocent child coming together and facing horrible darkness and using their ingenuity to get out. And as they do, they also help our other friends save the world. One of the reasons we tend to underestimate children is because they're physically weak. And if there's one child in the Stranger Things universe that has never been weak, it's 11. She can do all sorts of things just with the energy of her hands. And she is as deadly a weapon as there ever was. 11, of course, played by Millie Bobby Brown, is one of the great child characters. Because of the way she's grown up and because of all the trauma that she's gone through, Elle is in need of a different kind of power, and that would be the power of wisdom. And who better to help her find it than Jim Hopper, played by David Harbour, who is the good dad to Papa's bad dad. And one of the best storylines in the whole season is that he is trying to impart on her the caution and the wisdom to use her powers without being completely impulsive, to be really careful and not put herself in danger, because you get overconfident when you're as powerful as she is. And that she must impart on him the understanding that, yes, his little daughter, Sarah, who died of cancer, died as a child, but 11's no longer a child. She is legally, but she's growing up. And while Sarah will always remain little and that's where she'll stop, 11 is old enough now that she is able to make her own choices. And these are really difficult choices that she's always, by the way, had to make. So he, as they keep saying, is trying to keep 11 from being a stubborn punk ass, which is what he himself was. This is why he's the best dad for her, because there's so much that connects them. He really gets her in ways that nobody else does. And he's also trying to get her to fight for the future that she deserves, which is a happy future, because by God, she has had a tormented past that she's withstood with so much strength and goodness, and still, like, well, she continues to have a pure heart. But she is trying to help him understand that there are some choices that she's going to make, and that she's old enough to make them, and that she has the right to do so, and that he needs to let her, and he needs to let her make it without her breaking his heart, because she doesn't want to break his heart, because she loves him. He saved her. That's her dad. And my God, what a journey. She was always going to be the most powerful character. That wasn't in question. We knew this from the start. But for her to get to that point where she is this mature and able to make her own choices about what to do with that power, and do it by teaching her beloved dad a lot of things about acceptance and growing up, that is about as perfect a journey as you can have for a character. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I have a whole series of Stranger Things videos. Maybe you saw them, maybe you didn't. We'll put the playlist for them in the comments, but I would love to know, what are your thoughts on season 5? What are your thoughts on the whole series? Did the finale satisfy you? Did it not? How do you feel about the fact that we must never underestimate children? And please like, comment, subscribe, and let's stay hopeful the way that the Duffer Brothers want us to. And remember to always stay big-hearted.